Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that does what it says on the tin. Netflix vs. Cinema. I know what you're thinking. You're wondering, hang on a second, how can you be Netflix vs. Cinema when there is no cinema? That is true. There is no cinema at the moment, even though I feel we might be inching ever closer to cinemas reopening in some way and giving us some Christopher Nolan goodness. My name is Tosin, and I am the host, based up in Coventry, well, in the Midlands. And joining me on the Isle of Wight, first of all, is Sharon.
Hello.
Yes. And also on the Isle of Wight is Shaun.
Hiya.
Yes. Right. Well, go. Okay. So first of all, before I get on to asking you about how you guys are doing, I want to say Netflix for cinema. How are we doing things when there is no cinema? Usually we go to the cinema. We see 3 things at the cinema between the 3 of us. We see 3 things on Netflix and other streaming platforms. We weigh them up out of 5 and we say, who has won this week? Who is winning this big battle for our eyeballs? Is it Netflix or cinema? But with no cinema, what we're doing is that we're going to have a bit at the beginning where we talk about our viewing habits, what we've been watching, what has been good, what's not been good, or what we haven't been watching, or what we started watching and thought, oh, for goodness sake, I cannot be bothered. And then we will have, in the middle of the show, will be a cinema section where we will speak to somebody. And I was just explaining to Shaun. Shaun was talking about one of the interviews that we've done recently. And we're saying, we just speak to somebody who just loves cinema. And we ask them a couple of questions about why they love cinema. And I'm loving the sort of like revolving door of views and stuff that we've been getting over the last couple of weeks. It's such a good part of the show that I feel like when cinemas open up again, I want to keep a little bit of it in. I don't know about you guys, but I think I still want to keep a little bit of the interviews going.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a nice idea. Always nice to have a little bit of either, because it can either be controversial or, you know, I don't mean in a nasty way, but, you know, like a bit of disagreement, a bit of agreement. And it's always good, I think, to have different takes on things.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to what we have.
Like something I will mention later, which I think okay. you 2 reviewed, and I think I finally caught up with it. I didn't see it when you did. So yeah.
Sounds like it's a fight. Sounds like it's a fight brewing. Right? It's like Netflix versus cinema versus Shaun versus Sharon versus Tosin. Yeah, sorry, Sharon, you were going to say.
No, I like the interviews. I did like them when we used to do them as part of our older podcast, our radio show it was then. We used to interview people around the hospital at the time. I used to always like those bits and always was interested to hear what people had to say about their filming, their cinema experiences. So I like them.
Yep, good stuff. So then we'll have that bit in the middle where there's going to be a cinema section where we talk about, it's a celebration of cinema, what it means to us, what it means to all of us people who come together and watch films just for the pleasure of it. So, how have you guys been doing? What have your viewing habits been like?
Off you go, Sharon. I'll let you go first.
Shaun's waiting to drop his bomb at the end. Just waiting to lob a bomb in there. I can feel Shaun wanting to lob a bomb.
I could start now if you want.
I haven't watched a great deal, but so I can get mine out of the way quite quickly. Then you can get on with yours. So I finished off a series on Netflix called Letter to the King. That's the only series I've completed on Netflix, and I've started to watch the season 3 or the season 4 of Cardinal, which is on BBC iPlayer. So I'm halfway through that. So I haven't watched a great deal. I have finished Letter to the King.
Letter to the King. Now, this is the one that I've seen. I think I've seen the poster of it, and I saw the trailer. And all I know is that it stars the guy who plays Will from his Dark Materials. Is that right?
Yes, I didn't watch his Dark Materials, so
okay.
Yeah.
I think so. What's that about? What was it like? Well, how would you rate it?
Well, it's basically a sort of fantasy, a sort of historic fantasy type thing. So it's set in an unknown period of history in an unknown land where all the countries have sort of strange names. They've got their own mythologies, and where there's no magic, and yet there's this young lad who starts to experience some sort of strange phenomena as his latent powers sort of come into being. And one day this knight, he meets this knight in this encounter, and he asks him to take this important letter to a king of a kingdom that is far away. And so off this lad basically trots on this mission with this letter. And over 6 episodes, he encounters all sorts of foes and perils along the way. And this sort of the world is expanded, so you get to understand how it's made up of, its legends, its villains, its heroes, and
it's ogres,
mysteries.
it's goblins, it's Tom Bombadils.
Yes, so it's a quest,
it's
quest
fantasy
series.
Yeah.
Fantasy, yeah. But it's it's fantasy in that it's set in a fantasy land where it's sort of like this sort of medieval world.
Sorry, you just cut out your sound just cut out for a second. What did you say? A fantasy land? All I heard was it's set in a fantasy land, and then I heard nothing than medieval world.
This is a fantasy, medieval, historical setting. So yes, it's a bit of a hodgepodge. But it's got knights and it's got damsels and these poor villages. It's a pre-industrial age, basically, but what they often like to set a lot of these fantasy epics in. Yeah. I don't know if it's based on a novel or if it's based on just a series of things.
But it's would you say it's aimed? It looks like it's aimed mainly at sort of like teenagers.
I would definitely say yes. It was I would put it under the YA, the young adult banner, which is probably why I was watching it whilst I was doing other things. It's not something that held my attention, and so it was on. Yeah, and I watched it.
And how many stars would you give it? This is going to be a big one. It's going to be a 3.
I'd give it a 3 because I don't think I was the intended audience. Quite honestly, I think if it was aimed squarely at a YA, all the protagonists were sort of teenagers and going through teenager type things. So nice. For them, I think it was growing up and maturing and learning about themselves. So all those themes that are important to young people. So, but it wasn't necessarily aimed at me. So I'd give it a 3. I thought it was entertaining, but yes, it's not necessarily aimed at someone of my demographic, shall we say.
Yeah, but I'm over it. I am totally over it. Okay, cool. All right, Shaun. Okay, so Shaun, bring it. I can see you bursting. You're like rubbing your hands together. There's almost a glint in your eye.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure I'll come to that later. I'll just tell the other things I've sort of watched. I've been watching a lot of because obviously I've got the YouTube thing, and I've been watching loads of old interviews. Like I think they call it the Actor Studio with Robert Redford, and they're quite long. They're quite long things, and Paul Newman and Robert Mitchum, and then I've gone back to the sort of films that I remember, and it's really really interesting to see they're all a bit dated. But I did watch Avengers Endgame again. But then the other film I watched, right, and this is one I'm sure you two have reviewed it.
Yep.
And I might even let you ask me 3 questions and see if you can guess it, or do you want me just to go into it? It's up to you guys. But what do you think it might be? Let's just say, go on in.
I was going to say, so it's a film that both Sharon and I saw, but you didn't see.
I didn't see. I'm pretty certain you two reviewed it, in one of our earlier.
And we reviewed it on the podcast.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I mean, I believe so.
Okay, I think we've lost Sharon. Sharon is
I messed around with my phone. Sorry, I missed what was that you reviewed? You saw, Shawnee?
I was just saying, I'm quite certain that you two reviewed this on one of our previous podcasts. I'm pretty sure, and I hadn't seen it because I didn't quite like the first one. So I haven't said yet. I'm seeing if you can guess.
I'm sorry.
So it's the second one. So it's a sequel. Okay, I'll give you that much. It's a sequel. It's a sequel, yeah. And
I'll ask you, did we like it?
I think you didn't mind it. I think Sharon, I can't remember. I think it was a 3 for Sharon and probably a 3 for you as well, Toes. That's from what I could recall, but I can't guarantee that.
It was a sequel. So this is a film that's a sequel that both Sharon and I saw. Yes. We didn't mind. And obviously it looks like
Frozen 2, was it?
No, but it was partly animated.
Partly animated.
It was partly animated.
Or So, or animated, I guess you could say. So, an iconic character that I love from a purely animated movie, and then a movie was made, which I was really looking forward to.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
No, not Sonic. Not Sonic. No.
It wasn't Lion King, was it?
No. Okay. How about if I was to say, three fairies in it?
Cinderella.
Oh, Maleficent
2, yeah.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
Oh, you didn't see that?
Yeah, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry,
I didn't mind it.
Yeah, you didn't mind it. Well, guess what, Sharon? Go on.
What?
Guess what?
You hated it?
Absolutely. I was like, I had to watch it. I had to watch it, and I thought, I cannot believe, and I mean, I was surprised that you didn't mind it because with the animation and what have you, but I saw this.
I let these things wash over me most of the time, so.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, why would you do that? It's just the most horriblest thing. The best person in it was it, who was it who played the sort of queen? Was it Michelle Pfeiffer? Or was
I think it was Michelle Pfeiffer, yeah. She was like the evil queen, yeah.
She played the evil one, which to me was like, she was far, far better than Maleficent. And yet Maleficent has always been this iconic, horrible being that I'd always looked up to. And she's just turned so nice. Not right. It's not right, Sharon. It's not right. And then I'm going to do a spoiler here because it just really, really annoyed me. Is lock some people in the door, lock some people in, and leave the key in the door. Bang, 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 bang. Oh look, why not just take the key out and chuck it down out the way somewhere? Off the castle ramparts, or whatever. So no one can get it.
I probably didn't pay that close attention to it, to be honest with you. I just went. I lean back and I eat my pick and mix and I go, let it do its thing, and then I don't.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Toes, did it do in the cinema? Do you know? You're pretty knowledgeable on this stuff.
Did it do well in the cinema?
Yeah. Do you know offhand or not?
I don't know offhand, but I think it made enough for them to consider making another one. I think obviously the first one made enough, but I think first of all the thing that you just said, Shaun, is like, oh, this horrible evil person that I always looked up to.
yeah, that sounded a bit. I mean, not looked up to. I shouldn't say that, should I?
You know what? Maleficent should have won.
Yeah.
So
I mean.
So but I think I understand what you mean. But yeah, there is this trend where they go into a film and then they try and make the bad guy the focus of the film. And if you're going to make the bad guy the focus of the film, to a certain extent, you're going to make the bad guy the good guy. And I think it's stupid. I think if it's a bad guy, why are you trying to make them a good guy? And it's a bit like Venom, what they did with Venom. I think I remember growing up reading Spider-Man comics, and Venom was like the worst thing ever. Like, I just wanted Venom to be killed because he was just this horrible, horrible thing. And now they're trying to make him a good guy and make him like carry movies. And I'm thinking, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. He's supposed to be a bad guy. Leave him alone. Let him be a bad guy. Just leave him alone. No need to start giving me backstory to explain how, somebody pushed him in a puddle once, and that's why he decided he was going to destroy the whole world. It's like, it's like, oh, come on, please, no. But yeah, I agree with you on that. And that's probably the reason why I never watched Maleficent, quite frankly, because I could see.
Yeah.
Are they trying to make her the good guy? And they have this whole thing where Maleficent is now essentially the surrogate mum for Sleeping Beauty, for Aurora.
Yeah, Sleeping Beauty, I know.
Yeah, and I'm like,
that's like,
how does that work?
Yeah, they're just basically, they've re-imaged the whole thing, haven't they? They've made the Fae, or these sort of wildlings, or whatever you want to call them in this sort of world, misunderstood. They're not evil. They're just misunderstood.
Yeah.
And so what you may perceive as being evil because they use magic, or they're from a different world and they have a different mythology, is not actually evil. It's just different.
Yeah, and I understand that point, and I think it's a good point to be made. I think maybe Maleficent is not the character to be doing that way.
Yeah.
No.
Because when you take the original cartoon, she was out and out evil, isn't she? She's just
yes.
out and out bad guy.
She was.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no shades of grey there. She's just not a very nice person.
And I feel like they've gone to a lot of efforts to build a whole mythology around her to excuse the whole thing, to make her good. And I'm like, that mythology did not exist in the first place. There wasn't like a question about the Fae in the original Sleeping Beauty movie. There wasn't a question somewhere where you're thinking, oh, I wonder who that person is. Oh man, it would have been good if we had more time to spend with them. We only had 5 minutes. There was none of that. And they've gone to great lengths to build a mythology that excuses a character. And I'm like, that might have been better spent building like, what was that thing? Carnival Row. Like, make something original, a bit like Carnival Row that does a similar kind of trick with that. But it's, and I think does it better. But hey, I haven't watched the Maleficent movie, and that's part of the reason. So, okay, now, on to what I've watched. On to what
do you want my star rating?
Oh, yeah, star rating for that. Yeah.
Do you want my star rating? Okay. Purely for Michelle Pfeiffer.
Purely for Michelle Pfeiffer.
She was class. Yeah.
Well, come on, Angelina Jolie's cheekbones had to have at least half a mark.
The makeup. Come on, give it a point for the makeup.
Yeah. I know. I don't think she's that. To be honest, even in real thing, I think she's like, what can I say? I don't know what I can say really. But I don't think she's that hot. I don't think she's. As everybody said, no, she's not my cup of tea.
I have a friend, Matt, who is. Last time I checked, he was somewhere. I think probably Japan. So I have a friend, Matt, and Matt would say, and he would argue, because obviously there was this whole period where Angelina Jolie was seen as a sex symbol, and everybody was like, oh my god, Angelina Jolie, oh my god, check her out and all that, and he refused, and I think his reasoning was she looks like her dad, and her dad was obviously John Voight. And as far as he's concerned, he couldn't get past the fact. He's like, she looks like a dad, and I am not saying that John Voight is hot.
Oh goodness, no! I look the same.
He's like, I refuse to say John Voight is hot. Therefore, Angelina Jolie cannot be hot because she looks like a dad. And it's like, and that was his whole reasoning behind it. Okay, so. Going on to people who are seen as hot, and the film that I saw this week, I saw a film on Netflix called Extraction, and this is a film.
Oh yeah, with Chris Hemsworth.
With Chris Hemsworth, and one of the first takeaways I got from this film was like, oh my god, they're letting him actually be Australian. So this is I think it's one of the only films I've seen of Chris Hemsworth where he's actually being Australian, and it's the whole idea is that it starts off in India. And you have this, it starts off as a school, and you see this kid. And this kid, you get the idea that he is well off because he finishes school, he gets into like a gleaming black Mercedes-Benz, gets driven home to this big house, and everybody's like, where were you? You're supposed to come straight back home. Then he goes out partying at night, he sneaks out of the house, goes partying. And while he's partying, somebody comes, like 2 policemen come up to him and his friend going, oh, what's that? You smoking something? You smoking something? Oh, don't worry. We're cool. We understand. You have your whole lives ahead of you. Then they take out a gun, shoot his friend in the head, put a bag over his head and shove him into the back of the car.
That was unexpected.
Exactly. And then it turns out that he's actually the son of the biggest drug lord in India who is currently in jail. And so this drug lord goes to his second in charge and says, you were supposed to look after him. He says, get my son back, because it turns out that the biggest drug lord in Bangladesh has kidnapped his son. And he says, get my son back, otherwise your son and your family are dead. So this guy is like, oh, I've got to figure out a way of getting his son back. So he gets in touch with some extraction experts, which is where Chris Hemsworth comes in, because he is like, think about it. Okay, you think about the action movie. Think about the kind of character that Chris Hemsworth is playing. And if you think action movie, you pretty much already know it. Damaged past, ex-military. He comes into this job. Everybody is like, oh, Rake. His name is Tyler Rake. And they're like, Rake, you've got a little bit of a death wish, haven't you? Just wishing that someone else is going to pull the trigger for you. Blah, blah, blah. And all that sort of hard-boiled dialogue. And so his team is brought in, and his team is to go into Bangladesh, go into the middle of this heavily guarded place that this drug lord has, and get this kid back. And that is essentially the film becomes a thing of go in there, get the kid, get him back, and all the things that are going to go wrong, and how you're going to sort of go over all those things. There's a little bit of double cross, triple cross in there. And this is what I would call a solid action movie. It's like a solid actionaire. It's not trying to be anything much. It was written by Joe Russo, who is one of the guys who directed Avengers Endgame. And he and his brother, so Joe and Anthony Russo, after Avengers Endgame, after working with something that big, they decided that they were going to make this film company called Agbo. And Agbo was going to make smaller, tighter films that didn't need that much of a budget. It was the way they looked at it. And also started doing things that other people wouldn't. So, 21 Bridges, Shaun, which you saw with Chadwick Boseman.
Yep, I saw that. Yep.
That was an Agbo film. And this
film... right, okay. So,
yeah, and this film is also an Agbo film. And there's bits of this film where I was like, hang on, that's 21 Bridges, because they're in Dhaka in Bangladesh. And when they actually managed to grab the kid, the first thing that this drug lord does is that the drug lord says, close all the bridges, close all the rivers. I want this whole thing fenced up. And I was like, oh, that sounds like 21 Bridges. And it's like 21 Bridges, but the Dhaka version. Yeah.
So is this an Indian production, Tos?
No, it isn't. It isn't.
No? Oh.
It isn't an Indian production. It is an American production, but it's very international. So they have made, and I feel like they have gone to great lengths to make it international. And even like the team that are going to go into Bangladesh and going to take this kid out, there's a lady who looks like she's Indian. It wasn't made clear whether she was Indian or Bangladeshi in the film. There's like, there's a black woman in there, there's white people, there's people from all over the world in this team that are going in to sort of get this thing out. And you can see that they've done that. And it is filmed there's bits of it filmed in Thailand, there's bits of it filmed in India. I'm not sure how much of it was filmed in Bangladesh, but I actually got in touch with a friend of mine, Sayma Chowdhury, and who is she is Bangladeshi, currently living in Dhaka. And I asked her, have you seen this film? What do you think about it? And she hadn't seen it, but, and this is what Sayma's like. She's a lawyer, so she's very kind of like, give her a task and she does it. and I said, have you seen it? And she sent me a message earlier today saying, my source, in inverted commas, my source has just sent me a copy of Extraction. I'll try and watch it over the weekend and let you know. But she essentially got back with me just before we started recording this, and she's watched the whole thing. And what I really wanted to know is, how in in Captain America Civil War, I was talking about the fact that the opening of Civil War it's supposed to be in Nigeria. It's supposed to be in Lagos. And it's obviously filmed in South Africa, but they did a lot of details. Like they got the color of the buses, the downfos. They got the color of the downfos. Yeah,
we like that.
Yeah, and so there were bits that they got wrong, like the fact that in the room Captain America is in, he's standing beside a radiator. And why would you need a radiator in Nigeria? But but apart from that, it's like, and they have a very similar thing, and it's the same director. The director who did that wrote this. And you feel, and I was watching it, not having been to Dhaka, not having been to Bangladesh, had a feeling that they had spent a lot of time trying to get the local bit right and trying to get that bit right. And you can feel that it doesn't feel like someone has gone and made the travel log version of what Dhaka is like. And it's the action scenes. I was to say the action scenes, Shaun, I think you'd like them. They are very visceral.
It sounds good. Yeah.
They're very visceral. There's a lot of John Wick's type stuff where you can see, Shaun, how you're going, oh, that's stupid. You wouldn't do that. He wouldn't fall that just because you shot him once. And you can see the whole double tap thing, and it goes on. And you can see the tactics that they've got. There's a lot of detail in this film, and there's a lot of shots where they make it look like it's one shot, where they go from a building, go off a balcony, get into a car, go into a car chase and all that. So I was watching with my wife, and she says I've ruined film for her because she was like, I'm just looking at the camera moves now. I'm looking at the camera moves. And she's like, I would never have noticed that was a good camera move before. But now I'm like, oh my God, the camera work is amazing. So in the end, Sayma, who I asked about it, and she was sending me like a thing. She sent me something saying I'm an hour into the film and my heart goes out to Chris Hemsworth. They certainly made it look dirty and dusty for Dhaka. I'll give it points for racing through Dhaka. That's like going in the car chasing scenes. She says, but so far it's failing on script. I'm one of those people who can watch films I love over and over again. This isn't one of them. I'll probably not even remember any of it. And she goes, unlike Man on Fire, a film I have watched more times than I can remember. Right now, it's still a 2 out of 5. I'll send you a final rating when I finish. Then about about an hour after that, she sends me, she says, done. Final rating is still a 2 out of 5. Sorry, I'm too old-fashioned. Without good content and script, a good face, exotic locations and cast, guns and violence won't cut it. If they're thinking of making a sequel, then that most definitely is a bad idea, because okay, no, that's a spoiler for the end of the film. That's a spoiler for the end of the film, but I would say that bit. But I asked her, what do you think about the portrayal of Bangladesh and Bangladeshis? And she goes, bang on. That was remarkably well done.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I like that when it happens.
Yeah.
Someone does a little bit of homework.
And I think they did a lot of homework for this film. She says the streets, the dialogue delivery, the people, the gangs, kids. She says the clothes, not so much. It's too here for the double layers that the thug had on. But apart from that, she says like they got the portrayal of, because I was watching it going, I think they're doing well. I actually think that they're doing really, really well. They're trying to represent this. And there's one particular character called Saju, who is like the Terminator, but he's like the Indian Terminator. And the fact that they've given that role to somebody who isn't white.
Is he good or bad? Can I just ask, is he good? Is he a good one or bad one? Terminator man.
He's a.
You're not going to say. Spoiler. Yeah, okay.
Although one thing I would say is that I would have loved to see the entire film done from the point of view of this Saju character, because I think it would have been a different film and possibly a more interesting film. As it is, it's a 3 out of 5 for me. I mean, Sayma is she's a bit more mean on it. It's a 3 out of 5 for me. But only because I feel it is a straight down the line action movie that you know what you're going to get. Like there's a bit where it comes up.
No.
There's a bit where it comes up and a character shows up and I'm like, yep, that's the guy who's going to betray them. And sure enough, guess what happened?
There he is.
It's like action movie 101.
Is it the sort of thing I'd like, you think, Toes? Do you think I should give it a go?
I think you would like the action. I think you would like the action scenes, Shaun. I think you would like the action scenes. I think you would, in the sort of John Wick type of way. It's not as slick as John Wick. It's a lot more sort of gritty and down and dirty, so to say. And I think that there's some bits with the camera work and things I think you would like. There's some bits with the military stuff. I think you would like it, but I'm sure that you find something that isn't quite right. and also the fact that it's in a different locale and it's not a place that we've seen on screen millions of times. It's not racing through New York. It isn't going through LA. And the fact that it's sort of, and I think even the way they portray the gangsters on the Indians, they're not just faceless thugs. They're not just there's a little bit of an attempt to give them a sort of backstory and give you a little bit of view into their life or what it's like living on the streets of these cities. So for those bits, I thought it was good, but I thought I need to check with somebody who is actually close to it. I need to check with somebody in Bangladesh and say, how have they done?
Yeah.
How have they done? Because I'm thinking that they're doing well, but there could be something a bit more subtle that I've missed. But she says, yeah, they did really well. And I think that you can see the detail that they put into it to make sure that they didn't just go, we need a locale with a whole bunch of faceless people that we can just kill off. And send this white man in to kill a whole bunch of people. Yeah, you can see that they have done that. So yeah, that is Extraction for me, 3 stars. All right. Okay, and now we get onto the cinema section of the show. As we have said already, this section shall consist of an interview done with a cinephile, with someone who just loves films, and is usually a friend of mine because I'm the one who knows how to work the technology. So, and this time round, we have a friend of mine, Karen Bagshaw. Karen is one of the first people I knew when I moved over to the UK. We were in a school together, and there's this interview. I think sometimes I have so much fun in the interviews, and the interviews get too long, and I have to cut them off. So there's about 10 minutes of this interview that I have cut out, and it's still about 37 minutes long or something. And this is a bit where we talk about where we met. And I met Karen at a school called Sexy's School. It's a school that we went to for our A-levels in a small village called Bruton in Somerset. It does exist. Look it up. That's SEXEY. Had a very strict entry-level policy, and there's a lot of people who are miffed that they did not get entrance into Sexy School. But I'll leave that where it is. So, yeah, this is Karen, friend of mine, up in Leeds, and this is what Karen had to say.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So thank you so much for coming onto the show. We have had, for anybody who's wondering about this, okay, obviously we are all friends. We haven't spoken to each other for a while, but on Facebook, which obviously brings everybody back together, Homeland recently finished. So obviously, I usually ask people what they've been watching in lockdown, and for you, you just finished watching Homeland, which was something that you stuck with for 8 years?
Eight seasons, yeah.
Eight seasons. You've stuck.
I think it is, yeah.
You stuck with Homeland, and you put something on there just talking about the way Homeland ended. No spoilers in it or anything like that. You just sort of said you were talking about your feelings about how Homeland ended, and quite frankly, I was shocked the show was still on. Because I gave up in season 2 and I was like, what else did they have to talk about?
Telling you, man, you missed out. It was like, I actually forget about Brody in season 1 and 2. Like, 1 was good, but I think I watched that after everyone had gone on about how amazing it was.
Yeah.
So it kind of, some of the spoiler was gone because I knew there was a season 2 that had already been happening by the time I started.
Yeah.
And then 2, they dragged it on too long. And I think he was in a bit of 3 as well. And it was just like, oh, this is getting a bit stupid.
Yeah.
But once he was out of it, oh my God, the show got so good. Some of the seasons were just brilliant. And Quinn was awesome. And yeah, I loved it. So...
Oh, you see so the deal that I made is that you come onto this show and let me interview you, and I will catch up with Homeland and let you. And you wanted like a season by season thing because you were watching it as it was a show that kept up with current affairs.
Yeah, they did really good stuff. They basically had these little powwow sessions with loads of people in the intelligence community in the States for a couple of days before every season.
Yep.
So I think actually probably like seasons 5 onward, 5 onwards, it was just so on trend in terms of what was happening in the world and how the things that you were suddenly thinking about and dealing with. So like the season they had drones in, and then the next year we started hearing loads more about drones, but they were on the edge of it. You know, they'd already filmed it before you really became aware of these as an issue.
Yeah.
It was really, really clever the way they did it. And then they had a couple of issues at the end, towards the end, in that without any spoilers, there was one point there's a female president, which they thought Clinton was going to win.
Oh, yeah.
And then Trump won. So I don't know how that actress had to deal with it, but she had to rewrite the character quite excessively, but suddenly. So they still had a woman playing the president, but she had the personality of a moron. So
good Lord. Oh, that's a tough one. We finally got a female president. She's an idiot.
Yeah, but I guess they still had they still had it on there. Same way, 24 had a black president before Obama was elected and things. So
that's true. There are similarities. So the deal we made is that you come onto the show and I'll catch up with Homeland. And I'll let you know whether it feels as precise or it feels as, oh my God, this is amazing afterwards. So I have picked up where I left off. Because the episode I left off was when a certain somebody arrives in the States, and I was just kind of like, oh, for goodness sake. And I just stopped. I stopped 6 years ago. I just went, I can't be bothered. I think I feel like I know where this is going and I don't like it. So I've picked it up again. It's still in season 2, but from what you tell me, this is the bit I have to slug through to get through to the good stuff.
Yeah, there's some bits with him where it just like, whatever. I mean, I think I remember watching it and it was okay at the time, but I could see why some people gave up at that point. I guess I always liked Claire Danes for years when she was in My So-Called Life, so kind of gave her credit for that.
I remember
and then carried on. And yeah, I think she just gets better. But I didn't really like that character as much in seasons 1 and 2. But then I think she's brilliant by the end of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember My So-Called Life. You used to record that on videotape and watch it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've got the DVDs. I haven't actually watched them. I bought them years ago and haven't actually got around to watching them. I should do that at some point.
All right, cool. We will get onto that, but now let's get onto films. Let's talk films.
Okay.
Because obviously, I'm not sure whether you've listened to the podcast at all, but it's called Netflix versus Cinema. And what we usually do is that we would usually watch 3 things, because there's 3 of us on the podcast. We would watch at least 3 things at home on Netflix and Friends. So other streaming platforms do actually qualify as well. So we would watch 3 things of this. We'll watch 3 things in the cinema, and we'll say, okay, in this week, who won? Where did we get better bang for our buck? Were we better served in the cinema, or were we better served at home, sitting on our butts? And and obviously now we don't have any cinemas because of the lockdown. We just don't have cinemas. So what we're doing for the cinema section of the show is that we're having a little bit of a celebration, and we're asking people these questions, which I have sent to you, which are, tell us the story of the first time you ever went to the cinema. Tell us, what was the last film you caught before the lockdown happened? Why do you think cinema is such a good thing? Why do you think going to the cinema is a thing? And also, the final one is, what are you most looking forward to seeing when the cinemas reopen? So, Karen Bagshaw, shall we kick off with the first one?
Okay.
So, tell us the story of the first time you went to the cinema.
I can't because I don't know what it was. I know absolute certainty what it wasn't, in that it wasn't E.T. that my brother went to see, and I was deemed too young to go. And that has been a family thing for years. We've talked about it. I don't know, E.T. comes up, it's a very sore point still. I mean, in fairness, looking back, I was definitely too young, but it's not the point. One of my earliest memories. So we moved to Somerset when I was 4, but before that we lived in Leicester.
Oh, yeah?
And it was in Leicester, so I have very few memories of Leicester. There's 2 involving different slides, and this one that they came back from the cinema and brought me a little notepad, a pencil with some little. I used to have the little pencils attached to the top of the big pencil, in a little packet, and an eraser on the end. And yeah, they brought me that, and I was just like, "Well, this is rubbish. I wanted to go to see the film with everybody else," and that's it. So, and then I thought, I don't know, maybe they just didn't remember, like, going to the cinema the first time wasn't such a big deal or something. I don't know, but I know he went. It was his friend's birthday party, and he went, and I was told I wasn't allowed to go because I wouldn't be able to sit still for 2 hours.
Yeah,
and I was probably about 3.5, so I probably couldn't have sat still for for the whole film. But ever since, it's been brought up many, many times over the years. And,
I just love this image of everybody. Okay, Christmas comes on and E.T. comes on the TV, and and houses all across the country, all across the world even, there's families sitting down going, "Oh," sitting down to watch this family, and in your family they're like, "Don't you dare talk about this! Turn it off!"
No, I'll happily watch it now. I have seen it since. I just know that I didn't get to go to see that at the cinema, and then somebody made us these stuffed E.T. teddy bear things that we've still got at the house somewhere. They're really good, actually. They look really realistic, but I think it was just some random lady my mum knew made them for us. So we had one of those each, which, again, just rubbing it in over the years. and then I thought, I don't know what I went to see, and I was thinking about it. I can remember different memorable cinema trips or whatever, but I can't remember what it was. I asked Mum and Dad, and they said, "Well, it wasn't E.T." It was their instant response. So
what is the first of your memorable experience? What's your earliest memorable?
I honestly can't remember, because they said, well, we moved to Somerset, and then the cinema was 25-minute drive away, and it was just a bit too much hassle to go all the way to the Oval for it, I think. So they think it probably was something in Cornwall when we'd have been on holiday camping and it rained, so then we tend to go to the cinema then.
Oh yeah. On
any rainy days in Cornwall, we'd go to Truro Cinema. So it was probably something then, but I think it was just scuppered by the fact that and this is really weird, because my whole childhood is about like films. I can tell you so much about 80s films, and I've seen all of them. But I think we moved, and that's right around when home video came in.
Oh yeah.
So
gotcha.
We just had everything on video. We would record everything off the TV. I mean, they've still got some of them. They're slowly starting to think they might get rid of them now. But we probably had 200-300 films from the telly recorded by the time we were teenagers.
I do remember your collection. Yeah. I think it was actually from your collection that I watched the original Star Wars trilogy all the way through for the first time.
Really?
It really was. Because I've mentioned this often on the podcast. I talk about how in Nigeria growing up, whatever we could get was very sort of piecemeal. So it was hard to get a whole bunch of, like, if you're trying to watch a TV series, it was hard to get the entire TV series and watch it all the way from beginning to end in the 80s in Nigeria. It was hard because TV schedules would just change all left, right, and center. And before that, I knew about Star Wars because Star Wars just has this big, massive cultural thing about it. So it's impossible to avoid Star Wars. But the only thing I had seen, the biggest chunk of Star Wars I had seen was a friend of mine had a tape of A New Hope, and I'd seen A New Hope, but it was in Italian. So it was an Italian dub. So I'd seen all this stuff, and we would say that I watched this whole Italian dub, not having a clue, because his family had lived in Italy for a while, and so they lived in Italy for a while, so he could actually understand some of it and what was going on. And I just watch it and be like, "Ooh, oh, ooh, something blew up! Ooh, laser sword!" So the first time I actually got to sit down and watch the original Star Wars trilogy in a way that made sense was from your video was from your videotape collection that I was like,
I got into an argument / bet with my friend's husband in the pub one day that I said the first time Star Wars was shown on telly, it was only called Star Wars, but that the initial starting scroll did say Episode 4, A New Hope, not 1.
Yeah.
And we got into a bit of a disagreement about at what point it was officially known as that. And I was like, it was from the first time it was on TV, and those videos proved it. So
you're like, look at it. Look at the adverts. It was on ITV. Look at the adverts in between.
Yeah, it was definitely recorded the minute it was shown for the first time. So we had so many videos that we watched, and some of them we watched thousands of times over. And the first videos we had as kids were definitely, it was Care Bears the movie 2 for me, and Transformers the movie for my brother. And we would watch them. If we had time to watch both, we would watch both. And if we only had time to watch one, we would watch Transformers, because I liked that as well.
Yeah.
And my brother was bigger than me. So, yeah.
It's funny, Sharon, who's one of the hosts of the podcast. She keeps talking about, because she has 2 older brothers, and she keeps talking about how her film watching experience is dotted with all these things where it's like, I wanted to do this, but my brothers, they control the TV. So, well, it's funny though. I mean, for a thing that is about, for a podcast that's about people who see themselves as like cinema literate. The Care Bears show up a crazy number of times. This is the second. This is the second interview I've done with. Did one with another one of my friends, and his first movie at the cinema was the Care Bears movie. So you come and
I'm sure I've seen the first one, but this is Care Bears the movie 2, where you have the babies and the Care Bear cousins, and it's very cute, but also quite scary.
The way it
as
should
cartoons
be.
Go. Evil guy.
I think that's the way it should be. If you're going to make a kids thing, make it scary. Oh, right, and also by the way,
like Transformers the movie, you're not allowed to watch these days if you're a kid, apparently, because it's too violent. And I'm like, what? We watched that like 1,000 times.
Yeah. I mean, it is violent, but then so is Tom and Jerry. So
I don't think it. Yeah, I don't know, because the robots are humanistic or something. I'm like, we watch that so much. It's just
yeah, true.
There's bad guys and good guys.
Yeah, a lot of them die. They're not just sleeping; they're definitely dead in Transformers the movie.
I mean, Optimus Prime dying will still make me cry when I watch it now, but that's not the point.
Yeah. I really have a soft spot for that film, and I know that a lot of people, it's kind of like the done thing to be like, oh, now that you're older, now that you're cool, and that really wasn't that good. I'm like, I don't care. I still like it.
It's amazing. It's truly amazing.
I still like Transformers the movie. I still think it's a really, really good. As I remember, like first we crack the shell, then we break the nuts. I remember some also random lines from that film. All right, cool. But okay, you were going on with that. You were saying a little bit of. Oh, by the way, if you guys are watching through your Return of the Jedi videotape, and there's a bit that seems to have been recorded over by something else, that might have been me. I just thought I've been keeping that secret for 20 years. I'll start telling you now. It might have been me.
I think it's fine. Don't worry. All the DVDs have been purchased anyway. So,
yeah, I know they've been purchased, but you guys have the originals before George Lucas started tinkering with them. Because I remember that's the time. I remember that there was a time either you.
Don't worry, we have the original DVDs as well. we're not that up on the new cuts and things. So it will be the first release.
Before he started tinkering with them and doing all sorts of things with Disney Plus and McClunky and all that. But never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. So, but you were going on a little bit about that. You're talking about holidays in Cornwall and all that sort of stuff. So why is it that you think, because you said obviously films have played a big, massive part in your life, and then I guess when you grew older, that translated to actually cinema trips. Why do you think cinema and films? Why do you think it's such a thing?
I mean it's a day out or an evening out, isn't it? So it's an event in that way, and it's something that's new that you won't have had a chance to see before. So that makes it more exciting than just watching a film that you've heard about or picked up on things. But more than anything, it's probably just because you're just complete focus because you're sat in the dark and you're not supposed to talk while it's on. So. I'm just thinking, actually, going back to Homeland, before that was 24, and me and my housemates used to have 24 rules when you were watching it, which was basically lights out, curtains closed, darkness, just sit and watch it and properly pay attention to it, and then we would be so jumpy, and our other housemate would come home from work and scare the crap out of us. So but it's a complete sort of sensual deprivation of everything else, and you're just 100% focused on the screen, which is a really big screen. The sound's quite loud, and it's surround sound now, which confuses me sometimes because my hearing's rubbish. And I'm like, oh, that's part of the movie behind me.
I get that too.
And things, but yeah, you're just sort of completely set on it, and you go there. You've chosen to go and see it. You're all going together, and then you get your snacks and go in.
Oh.
So yeah.
And one of the things we talk about, I mean, especially now, obviously with this lockdown, and there's a whole bunch of industries that are struggling. And as much as we love it and we think it's all about the magic and all that kind of stuff, cinema, Hollywood, all this stuff is a business, and cinemas are taking a hit at the moment. So for instance, if somebody told you today that, okay, that's it, cinemas can't handle it anymore, we're all going to have to go Netflix, Disney Plus, iPlayer, all that kind of stuff, how would you feel about that?
I don't think it's going to happen. I think they will take a hit and they will be smaller, but some of them won't survive, unfortunately. So there's a couple in Leeds that are like old school cinemas, been around since the 1900s. But I think it is too much of an event thing for people to go to that it will happen. As with everything, it will have to adapt in some way. So I know they're sort of bringing back drive-in cinemas in the States already, talking about doing it in London. But there's already, it's evolving in that way. You know, you've got secret cinema happening every year. You've got hot tub cinemas happening. You've got a lot more outdoor cinemas, even though it's England and likely to rain on you. They're going ahead and doing it anyway. So I think, you know, it is such a big thing in people's lives that I can't see it going completely. But yeah, it's...
So for you,
it's in their interest to keep it going, so they will work out how to do it, as you say, because it's a business. They'll figure out a way of making it come back, even if it has got some sort of. I mean, they're saying about yesterday was it they started talking about opening up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, mid July. Mid July they're talking.
Yeah, views coming back with some random algorithm for managing to sit you near each other, but not within 2 meters of other people or something. So. I don't think I'd be going yet, but then there's not going to be anything I really want to see at the moment, probably. But I think, yeah, it's been around for so long. Why would you not have it come back?
Well, why would you try and keep it on for some reason?
Yeah.
Because as long as I think about it, I think about someone like Netflix, because one of the reasons why the show came up is because when you look at the business model, Netflix are thinking, well, we don't have to pay for any heating. We don't have to pay for any staff. We don't have to pay for anything like that. We just give it straight to your eyeballs. So for Netflix, it's infinitely cheaper to run their business than it is for like a cinema chain, so to say. And the whole thing was like, well, are people just going to say we prefer this? But I know personally speaking, I mean, since this lockdown, I've been like, no, cinema has a reason, cinema has a place. Netflix is in cinema. Netflix, it's like
cinema's more social as well. Than you choose to go and watch a film with people that will also enjoy that film that are your friends. So it can be combined with going out for dinner, having drinks afterwards as well. So it can be a bigger event thing.
Well,
so.
It can be, even though nowadays most of the times I go to the cinema myself. So
I say that I actually do tend to go by myself, and actually now you've got cinemas like Everyman that have the food in the cinema as well. You can have pizzas and burgers and things and sit on a sofa, which is more like Netflix. So it's all blurred,
yeah,
but
you're getting me into a whole other discussion. that depending on how long this lockdown goes on, is something that I'm going to get onto, which is like talking about the greatest cinemas you've been in, or like the greatest cinema watching experience that you've actually had. But let's go. You got time, right?
Yeah, well, I was saying Leeds has got two cinemas that are like proper old school, which are both brilliant. So there's the Hyde Park Picture House, which looks like you could film period films there and you wouldn't notice any difference. So and then there's Cottage Road Cinema, and I think both of them go since about 1912, 1915. I think one of them is the longest running cinema in England and things.
Oh, wow.
And they're genuinely really, I mean, Hyde Park's really, really pretty. Cottage Road's really sort of Art Deco, retro. In fact, Wincanton, the town I grew up in, had a little cinema as well, an old cinema at one point, which was also a bingo hall. It was very bizarre. But Cottage Road is a bit like that in that it's got the big velvet curtains that come across the screen. It's got all velvet seats, and it's got they sort of have an interval. They basically do the trailers, and then the man comes in to sell ice cream, and you can buy ice cream from him, and then they open the curtains again, and then they go again with the film starts. So it's good fun.
That's also because I think at the time that we're speaking, then our next episode of the podcast is going to feature Patrick, who is a 70-year-old who used to be an usher. His mum was, I think, a film projectionist in one of the cinemas. So he said that he was pretty much born in the cinema, and he's seen the change in cinemas going. And he was talking about these sort of cinemas and how you would have all this stuff, and it was a big deal. And I'm just kind of
tell him to come to Leeds. He'll get to go straight back to it. It's definitely a bit like a time warp. They're actually renovating Hyde Park at the moment, but they are. And Hyde Park, randomly, I went to a film premiere there when I was a student, and they had the premiere of Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back was
really?
there. Yeah, I have no idea why it was there, but it was, and we got tickets, and it was good fun. So
the premiere, did they have like the stars of the film and Kevin Smith?
No, they didn't have anyone there. I think it was just the first showing in England. I don't think they were doing a proper premiere, so they went, well, let's just do it somewhere random, and they picked this old art house cinema. So, but you got a little, like a lanyard around your neck with a little booklet that had all the stuff in it about it and things.
Oh,
it was,
that's good. That's good stuff.
You have those. So Wincanton had one that was a bingo hall as well. The cinema in Truro in Cornwall's pretty old school as well. And then you get the bigger sort of nicer, not nicer actually, just cleaner, and sort of snazzier.
Just more corporate.
Ones.
Just more corporate.
They have smaller screens now with less people. So like Cottage Road is probably 300-400 people. It's just one cinema, one screen, one room. That's it. And what they show is what they show. They do a mix of new and old stuff, whereas Hyde Park tends to be older. So the last time I went there was at Christmas. We went to see It's a Wonderful Life. They do every year.
Awesome.
And my friend hadn't seen it, and my family normally watch it every year, and I just thought, let's go see it there. It'll be a really good venue to go and see it in.
Oh, that is awesome. I'm there already. I am there. You're just talking the first time you get to see It's a Wonderful Life, be it in an old school. Oh my word! I saw it on Netflix. Yeah. I wish I'd seen it in a big, massive cinema.
Well, and then last year I watched it in colour for the first time, the remastered version. That was weird.
Yeah. I don't think I want it in color.
Yeah, it was really odd.
I don't think I want that in color. All right. So, you started talking about it a little bit. Or actually, let's go first of all. Where was the last film you managed to catch before the lockdown hit?
Star Wars. Go back full circle.
Go back full circle.
Star Wars Episode 9, definitely.
Cool. And what did you think?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I mean, obviously already established big Star Wars fan, so I think the JJ ones have been really good. I think 7 was I really enjoyed. 8 was not so keen on. 9 brought it all back. And actually, when we went to see the cinema, and nobody else seems to have seen this, I don't understand if I feel like I was hallucinating. Thankfully, I had 2 friends with me this time, and they definitely both saw it as well.
Yeah.
But before the film, I think after the trailers, but before the film started, there was a little clip about 10 minutes, which was or 5 minutes even, which was like basically outtakes from the original trilogy filming. and they had like Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill just mucking around, laughing, getting words wrong in the Millennium Falcon, and just sort of corpsing and cracking up. And it was really cute, and then it had some nice music in the background, and it had a couple of other cuts from the old stuff, and it was just like, oh my god, I'm really emotional.
Wait a second. What cinema did you see this in?
That was in Leeds. It was just a View cinema, yeah.
Really?
And I don't know, and nobody else seems to have seen it. Like, we definitely had this random bit before the film that was to do with the old one. I don't know if it's supposed to be a trailer or something.
Maybe that's just like a View specific thing. Maybe View got some special kind of like dispensation to show that, because I definitely didn't have anything like that. Definitely didn't have anything.
It was really cool. And then watching the film, I was just so excitable throughout, I think. But I was really excitable when 1, 2, and 3 came out. You know, they may not have turned out to have quite the impact as the others.
I do remember.
But when they happened,
we went through the excitement together. I remember we were probably in school when the trailer for The Phantom Menace dropped, and I remember I remember seeing that going, oh my god, and then seeing the film and coming out going, yeah, that was good, but in the back of my mind there was something going, I don't think it really was.
But no, I mean, out of the 3, Phantom Menace is the best, and I think I definitely remember I went on my gap year to the States, so what was really cool is either Phantom Menace or the second one, I got to see 3 months ahead of the UK because they were still releasing things in staggered timings. I mean, it was a lot closer. Like I say, as a kid as well, some of the cinema things was maybe that's why I didn't go as well, because my uncle worked for an airline, so he used to nick the films and send them to us well before they came out over here. He used to send little film tapes that he just picked up on the airline when he was a mechanic. So. Or he'd buy them on video when they came. They would come out in the States a year before they'd be even hitting the cinema here and things. So, a lot of the times we'd get them that way. I think we had to buy a special video player that could actually handle the stuff he was sending. But
yeah, because of the American NTSC thing and stuff.
Yeah. It worked out.
So, okay, is your uncle retired?
Yes, he's unfortunately no longer with us, but
that's unfortunate.
He used to send videos, films actually, and I think it was him I went to see. It must have been the second Star Wars, and chatting to him about his daughters and what he was going to what order he was going to show them in. So then the thought when 9 came out, she texted us going, "Thinking about your dad today. You know, he would have loved it and stuff." So it's the film. I just get really giddy, I think. I remember going to see, must have been 3 with work people. So yeah, it kind of went from school days through to work in terms of gap year and stuff. And then you kind of look back and go, oh man, but they were exciting when they came out. It was good to go and see.
Yeah, they were exciting.
And then, although Rogue One is what they should have been, because that was amazing.
I quite like it. It's funny because I think we have slightly different Star Wars taste. Because of the original trilogy, I actually think Revenge of the Sith is the best, and I didn't really like Rise of Skywalker. Maybe they showed me this outtake things that you shown. Maybe then I would have been in a more nostalgic frame of mind. But
I mean, I'm always giddy the first time I see it, so that's a given. But I rewatched it this weekend, because I got it, and I enjoyed it again. So I mean, is it the best film ever made? Is it going to stand? Maybe not, but it's good fun, and it sort of rounded up nicely. And I guess, am I allowed to do spoilers now, or is it still too soon? I don't know.
No, go for quite frankly,
but
I'm going to be honest
with
this film, I don't care.
One clip where the Ewoks are at the end, and I'm just like, yay! And the Emperor still terrifies me as an adult. So
okay, this is supposed to be your interview. It's not supposed to be Tosin complains about Rise of Skywalker again. It's not supposed to be this. But I just feel like as a film, it doesn't make any sense. The film just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, no, I get emotional.
Yeah, I mean, there's some bits that are a bit clumsy and things, and some of the stuff with Carrie Fisher's awkward, and
the film is massively clumsy.
But you just have to suspend your brain when you're watching these things anyway. So.
It's massively clumsy, and I just feel like I feel like, okay, the original, right? This is something that I've been thinking about, and I've been thinking, the original feels like it was this lovely gourmet meal that somebody has made for you. The Rise of Skywalker feels like there was leftovers of that meal and someone shoved them in a microwave and said, hey, you still like it, right? That's what it felt like to me. I was like, come on, guys. The second they had a trailer that had the Emperor's laugh at the end of it, I was scared. I was like, oh, good Lord, no, don't even go there. Oh, rubbish, they went there. I mean,
I mean, the premise of him being back, I'm like, okay, fine. I could argue about that. But once you accept that's what's going on, I think, I like some of the newer characters. I like Rey, I like Finn, I like Poe, so that's all good. And although the one bit that did get me yesterday was like at the very end, she goes back to Tatooine and she puts Luke and Leia's lightsabers in the ground there together.
Yep.
But Leia never lived on that planet, so that's a bit weird. I realised afterwards.
Funny enough, the ending is one of the few bits that I think they nailed. But
no, I liked it. It was really emotional. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It was only afterwards I went, hang on a sec. Why has she gone there? She's gone there so they can get the shot of Luke's house. Which I've been to in Tunisia. Which they could get that shot. They could get the double sunset.
Yeah.
Which is the bookend of the whole thing, which is fine. I accept that why they've done it, and I was alright with it. And I say it still found it emotional, but I was like, she never lived there. And the fact that then Rey had a gold lightsaber she'd made herself, I thought, oh, okay, gold, that's an interesting choice. That's all right, fair enough.
I have to say, the final shot of the film, I think, is beautiful. I was like, okay.
Oh yeah. I
was like, they ended up in the right place, but the route they took to get there was stupid. But but I will. This is one point where I feel like I might need to do a little bit of defense, because Leia grew up on Alderaan, which got blown up in the first Star Wars movie. So
yes, it would be difficult to go there. Yeah.
So I'll give that there, but
But she lived in many places, and there was some where they would have been together. So.
Yeah, true. True. And I think this. We're gonna get all philosophical here, and I think this is the thing where in Star Wars, it's the fact that it's like a film that is aware that it's a Star Wars film. If you get what I mean. It's not just trying to tell you a story or give you an adventure. It's aware that it's a Star Wars film. And because we're a Star Wars film, we need to do this and that and bring this in there and bring that in there. And for some reason, J.J. Abrams thinks that it's impossible to make a Star Wars movie that doesn't have the Emperor in it. Therefore, we've got to find some way of regurgitating that corpse and bringing him back. That corpse. But anyway, let's move on, because as you can see, I could go on all day, and I think we possibly... So, what are you most looking forward to see when cinemas reopen?
I don't know how you're going to feel about this one. Bill and Ted 3.
Oh, good stuff.
I'm so excited.
Good stuff. I like it. Bill and Ted Face the Music. I like it.
I mean, it's probably going to be awful, but I have to go and see it because I love 1 and 2 so much. So... yeah, I guess we'll see. Trusting Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter at this point that they've not done something awful.
It's funny that you say that, because last week we had our youngest ever reviewers on the show. We interviewed somebody the week before, and he has a big deal of introducing his kids to pop culture stuff. And he sent me a picture of them. He was like, look, this is the latest thing I'm doing to continue their education. And it was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure that he was showing them. His kids are 9 and 6. Yeah. And after they watched the film, they sent me their reviews of the film, and they absolutely loved it. They were like, oh my God, it was so good.
Brilliant.
Laughing all the way through. So yeah, Bill and Ted Face the Music. I'm up for that. It's one of those things that I agree with you. I'm like, I don't know if they can pull it off, but I'm really
I'm interested to see. I have to see it.
I'm interested to see what they do.
I do always argue that when everyone goes, oh, sequels are never better than originals, I'm like, Bill and Ted 2, Bogus Journey is slightly better than Excellent Adventure, although they're both brilliant. So yeah.
I think there's some people who might be listening to this who might be like, because I've heard this argument rage on and on and on. It's kind of like a Wayne's World 2 kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I personally prefer Wayne's World 2 because I think it is more obviously a comedy, or it's more obviously like the kind of thing that I get. But it's but there's a whole bunch of people who are like, no way, the first one's better. And I think Bogus Journey is a similar thing for me, because I feel like Bogus Journey is more obviously funny than Excellent Adventure.
Yeah.
And so I prefer Bogus Journey, but there's a whole bunch of people who are like...
And it's got death in it. So, yeah, what do you want?
William Sadler's death. He is genius. He is absolute genius as death.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's the one worry about the next one, because he's in it, but Rufus, obviously George Carlin passed away, so I don't know what they're going to do about that. I haven't seen what they're going to do. But literally, I would say for the 10 years, it's been announced so many times they're doing it, they're making it, they're going to start from, they've got a script, whatever. Every time it's announced, I get sent at least 3 times. I get sent the link, and I'm like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. So it's been teased for so long that it's probably one of the only things coming out that I'd be quite excited about, actually.
All right, cool, good stuff. Well,
and another sequel, actually, Top Gun 2, which I was like, no, it's going to be rubbish. I'm not going to see that. It's going to be awful. Saw the trailer and went, all right, I'm going to go see that. I'm going to have to. Because again, it's the big, it's what films look better on the big screen for me versus which ones will be the same-ish, at least, to watch on a small screen. Yeah. So it's the big, it's the Marvels, it's the sci-fi that for me, I have to go and see it on the bigger screen.
I have to agree with you. I do think that the Top Gun Maverick will look good on screen because it's all about the stunts, which obviously is like Tom Cruise has decided to make his whole life about the stunts. So
yeah,
so it's a bit like Cristiano Ronaldo. He used to be a good winger, but no, now all about the goals. Tom Cruise is like, forget acting, stunts.
Yeah, and as far as his other stuff more recently goes, not as big a fan of his, but I'm like, Top Gun was class, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, no, everybody was making such a hoopla about the last Mission Impossible movie.
I think I gave up after about 2 or 3. I don't know. I've seen some of them, but I can't even remember how many there are now.
There have been 6. There have been 6.
Oh God, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 5 I quite like. 6 everybody yelled about like it was this amazing leap forward in action cinema, and I didn't see it or get it or vibe with it. I was just like, no, I don't get this. I don't. Why is everybody yelling about this? I don't get it. But hey, anyway, that's just me.
Yeah.
Thankfully for some people, though. Well, let me put it this way. Thankfully for some people, their jobs do not rely on me liking the film. So, all right. So, anyway, Karen, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Thank you so much for
being welcome. Yes. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. It was a lovely trip down memory lane. It was, and it's finally managed to unburden my soul about that bit of Star Wars that I think that bit of your copy of Return of the Jedi. I think I recorded over with, I don't know, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something.
It can't be, because I'm sure I've seen that. We used to watch those films every summer, and I'm sure we would have noticed, and I don't remember it being a problem. But just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. And until cinemas open up again, I might have to come up to Leeds and do a little bit of a tour around some of the cinemas because they do sound amazing. Yeah, they are pretty cool. You're very welcome to come up. It'd be nice to see you in person as well.
Yes, that would be. It would be. And when we're finally allowed to hug again, we'll see.
Indeed.
All right, cool. Thanks so much. Say hi to Mum and Dad for me.
I will do. They send the love. All right, take care, Tosin.
Bye.
Bye.
Once again, thank you very much to Karen Bagshaw for coming on the show and for making me watch Homeland. So, for making me watch Homeland. I have now signed up to finish watching Homeland and give her regular updates. Although, to be fair to her, I mean, I got in touch with her after that, and she did say that if I'm not enjoying it by season 6, she will let me off for seasons 7 and 8.
That's okay then. Well, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised after what you did to a videotape. I'm surprised.
Yes, that the secret that I've kept myself for ages, and then finally comes out on a podcast where my myself, like, my begging, my groveling sort of my groveling admission, or my groveling sort of begging for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because what I did to her.
Something similar happened to me, though. Someone lent me a video that they taped off the television, and they had treasured for years and years. And I only had a very old, slightly wonky video player, but I really wanted to watch this film. It was called Anne of 1,000 Days. So it's a film about Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. Anyway, I watched the video, and it was great. It was a really good quality, even though, it was a very, very old videotape. And I turned around, I turned back, and spontaneously, my video had started recording.
Oh no!
And I went, where's the recording symbol on? And so I rushed to the video and stopped it. But it had taped over the first 10 minutes of the film. And I spent the next 2 days going around every video shop on the Isle of Wight looking for a copy of Anne of 1,000 Days. And in the end, I ordered a copy from HMV, and I bought her copy for her with an apology. So I gave her back her treasured video, and I said, but this is what happened, and so here is Anne of 1,000 Days on, DVD. Because but I had that moment.
What was you recording, Sharon? What was you recording? That's what we want to know.
It just spontaneously started.
Oh, that's a shame.
And it was whatever was on the television. It was probably the news at 10 or something. It was nothing significant. It was just, it just started, I'd around it, and when it got to the beginning of the tape, it just went, I'm going to record now. And it just started recording.
Yeah.
Without me having done.
I'll tell you what. Some of those videotapes, really, I know they're all by and by, but somewhere on one of mine was when Ronald Reagan got shot, because they had a news flash, and it was a film.
That came
I've said this. I think I've said this before on one of our previous things. Was a film called The Deserter, which was a western, and I was watching it. It was on BBC One. I was really, really getting into it. And it goes, news flash: President Reagan has been shot. So,
wow.
I mean, and you get all little bits like that, and like just little bits like.
When you record from the television, you get all.
Yeah. So it would be fun to go through them. Probably quite boring, but it'd be fun to go through them and just see if there was any like mishaps with the recording, or something ran over, or you recorded the wrong channel, or.
Okay. Because I have something similar. Because obviously with what I do with work, I work with videos, I edit videos, all that sort of stuff, film them, edit them. And part of what I do is also I do VHS tapes. So people if they have old VHS tapes of holidays or anything like that, I transfer them to digital for them. So that and some of it is actually, people just give me these tapes and they're like, oh, we don't know what's on them. And some of it is it's kind of like, it's golden, but you don't know where you can put it or what you can do with it. It's like there was someone gave me a tape, and when I started playing it, it was like a video of Match of the Day, but like probably from the second year of Match of the Day being on TV. So you had like Des Lynam with like a 4:3 aspect ratio, and I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And especially when you now get to the points where if they recorded off ITV or something, like, you get these old adverts.
Adverts,
And it's actually, it's really, and that's one of the reasons why I felt so bad about the bit where I slipped hit record and recorded over a little bit of Karen's family treasured copy of the Return of the Jedi, because it's not, I can't go and get that, especially because George Lucas keeps tinkering with them and keeps changing them.
Yes.
I can't go and get that back. I can't go and get that back. I'm like, well, it has all the ads and all that kind of stuff. I'm really sorry. But I do know that in the Bagshaw's house, they were like, they were video. They had walls of the video stuff. They had walls of VHS tapes.
I had something like 30 videotapes that I reused, and I had a notebook with each tape. And so every time I recorded anything, I wrote it down in that page. And then I know which ones I wanted to keep. And so I would mark, where what could be taped over and what was not to be taped over.
Yeah.
So I had a system for all my videotapes.
I used to have like a little typewriter, and like you used to get the stickers. So if you get like
the labels,
tape,
I wrote at the labels, and I used to type on them and literally like 007 to 795, a fistful of dollars. 07952 and all that, and it's quite it was quite fun doing that. So that's one of the. I'm surprised I had the patience to do it, knowing me, but I used to do it. I used to click them in there. But yeah, so yeah, that was it. It was an interesting interview, really. I'm gonna just pop in there with this other one first, because I think, well, you know my thoughts, and I'd just like to know your thoughts. I think It's a Wonderful Life is overrated.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I mean, because and I'm usually the kind of person who I don't like the hype. So when something is overhyped and everybody yells about something and yells about it, and then I eventually watch it after a while, I'm just kind of like for goodness sake, why is everybody yelling about this? It's how I feel about the Beatles. I'm like, why is everybody yelling about them? Will you just stop yelling about them? And it's and it's a Wonderful Life. I mean, I remember I saw It's a Wonderful Life. Probably I was still on the island. I remember watching it. It was when we were living in Cowes, so it must have been about 3 years ago. Was the first time I ever saw that film, and I do remember it. I remember finishing It's a Wonderful Life and going, oh my god. That's a great film, and it's one of the few films that has made me feel emotional enough, almost to the point of tears at the time when I finished. So I understand that. Yeah, I understand some people might not like it, but I do think it's a great film, and I can understand why people wouldn't like it as well.
It's not my favourite Christmas film, because for me it gets so dark. I know everyone says it's like it's a Christmas film, but to me it's like it's too dark to be a Christmas film.
But I think
gets so dark that I feel so uncomfortable. But it's a great film, but to me it's not the typical our annual Christmas film. White Christmas is our annual Christmas film. We always see that every year. But so I can understand how people do like it though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay. I'm not saying it's a bad film at all. I'm just saying that I think it's highly overrated. I dislike it.
Yeah, and I think I can understand that there would be some people who will over-egg the pudding when they're talking about It's a Wonderful Life, and I can totally understand that. But I do think it's a great film, and and I think, quite frankly, probably because of the darkness, I think it makes it a better film. If it had been all sugar and candy canes, meh.
I think that's why I don't find it a Christmas film necessarily, because of that depth of despair that he falls to. It's a film about redemption, isn't it? It's not really a film about Christmas. It's just got a couple of scenes in it about Christmas, and everyone goes, "Oh, it's a Christmas film," and it's like, to me, it's not really a Christmas film.
Yeah, but okay. So, any other thoughts on the interview?
Care Bear movies. What's that all about?
Care Bear movies. That keeps popping up.
The Care Bear
movies. It's like Care Bear and Star Wars. They're regular features of the show, aren't they?
They do keep. I mean, Star Wars not so much surprising, but the Care Bears, the fact that this is the second mention we've had of Care Bears makes me think, what the? What is it with the Care Bears? Why did they keep popping up?
Part of me feels like saying, should I have seen any of them?
Sharon, no, they're animation films, and I don't think you would have. I don't even think you watched animation as a kid.
Not really.
So,
I guess with me, I went that all passed me by. I guess I was too old.
Although I have to say,
I was aware of them, but I'd never seen them.
Yeah, I have to say, I did find it quite funny when she was talking about the first film that she says, like, I can tell you what film I didn't see.
Yeah.
It got me
and
thinking
I'm over it completely. Obviously not.
And it did remind me about you, Sharon, and you and your brothers, and how some of your viewing habits were determined by your brothers and all that kind of stuff.
Well, in the 70s, my mum went out to work in the evenings. She had an evening job. And so it was me, my two brothers, and my dad. And so, as the youngest, I was not even in the running about what we watched. So I grew up watching every 1970s cop show, every 1970s Western, every 1970s science fiction film. It shaped my whole childhood. Yeah. So, I never got to see, anything other than those sort of male-centric films. So, I never got to choose until I was probably in my teens when I went off to the cinema by myself.
So
yeah, they did shape certainly my early viewing experiences.
So when you went to the cinema, did they just drag you along to see whatever they saw?
Often, yeah, because because in the 70s it was a bit of a different world where children did go off on their own, and we were often the three of us with my brother's friend. Again, in our road, there were a lot of families growing up at the same time, and there's a family over the road, and a family down the road, all with children of a similar age. And so often there'd be like 7 or 8 of us would be packed off to cinema together, not an adult in sight, and we would all be packed off there, and we would go and watch a matinee or whatever. But often we would go down the river as well, and we would go and make a den in the woods, and we would disappear for hours on end without seeing another adult or seeing an adult at all. So growing up in the 70s was a different experience for us to most people.
I remember those days.
Especially on the islands as well.
They were great, really, I think.
Yeah,
there was nothing to do but amuse yourselves, really, and the trip to the cinema the trip to the cinema was quite a thing, because there was only like the 4 channels, wasn't there, really?
Yeah, and then in our house, we didn't have a lot in those days, so
no. The TV used to go off at 12, didn't it? The TV used to go off at 12.
There's no more television in the mornings. There's no television, and summer holidays had Why Don't You? So yeah, going to the cinema with my brothers and with some of the children in our road, that was what we did. We would, especially in the summer, if there's a film that we'd heard anything about, we would clear off down the pictures.
So there was never anybody telling you, "Oh no, you can't see E.T. You're way too young." They were just kind of like, "We're going to see this.
No.
We're going to see Dirty Harry. You're coming with us."
Yes, it was. Yeah, absolutely. It was just like that. There was there was nothing like, "Oh, that's not suitable for you." I just watched. I watched Exorcist when I was about 9 or something. And so yeah, there was that. We were left to sort of basically, get on with entertaining ourselves, and to a large extent. So we weren't as hyper protected as maybe young people are today.
Okay.
And
Shaun,
we did a lot of stuff with just the children. So
yeah, Shaun, it looks like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to when we were saying about TV finishing it late at night, and I remember once. I really, for some reason, I really wanted to see the original Universal Frankenstein, which was on about 9 o'clock. And I don't know if my mum and dad were out. My sister was with her boyfriend at the time. She was older, supposed to be babysitting. And I just remember seeing the original black and white Frankenstein, and it just terrified me. And yet you watch it now, and it's not half as bad as that was. So that was all. It was just a reminiscing, really, a bit off the point. I know, a bit off at a tangent, back to the 70s I remember those days, and as I say, you used to, like, if you did go, generally there would be queues for the cinema. You'd have to queue.
Yes.
It would be because it was you never really got to go. There wasn't a lot of money about. It was pretty austere time, really, and most of the time the kids had to amuse themselves, didn't they? And then you'd hear them shout, so
and now
it's dinner time, and then
And now
we had rules. We had to be home by tea. That was our rule. We had tea at 5 o'clock. We had to be home by 5, but that was our only rule. And so we would go out in the morning with a packed lunch sometimes, and that would be it. We wouldn't have to come home until tea time. And then if we went out in the evening, we had to be home by dark, which was a bit misleading when it's like in the summer and you would not know what the time was. So we'd turn up at 10 o'clock at night, and it'd be like, you should have been home, 2 hours ago.
Did you ever play games like, Sharon, what's the time, Mr. Wolf, or please Jack, may I cross the water, and or Mother May I? Did you ever play any of those games, or did you?
We played a lot of games in our road, because our road, there's a big green. There's 2 greens in our road, so we would play every evening in the summer. We'd play outside with all the children in the road. So we would play British Bulldog a lot, and cricket a lot, and rounders a lot.
And I'm beginning to worry that we're showing our age. I'm beginning to worry for anybody who's listening to this, and if you're listening to going, what the heck are they talking about VHS? What are you talking about recording over a tape? What do you mean, the Sky Plus box? Do you mean the Virgin box? No, we're talking about VHS. Look it up in the history books. If you're listening and you do not understand anything that we're saying, enjoy your youth. Don't waste it. Look after your back and your knees. They will serve you well in your later years. for anyone who doesn't understand those things. But yeah, there was a whole other world that we're probably never going to see again. We're not going to see people queuing up at cinemas because you're going to have to book and show up at a certain time and all that. But but also made me think about Shaun. You know Karen's in Leeds. Leeds is besides Bradford.
Yeah.
We want to go to the widescreen weekend sometime when we're allowed to actually go, when it's allowed to go back on widescreen weekend in Bradford, record an episode of the podcast there. And she was mentioning those two cinemas in Leeds, the old school cinemas in Leeds.
The
Would you be up for
Dhaka
that as well, Sharon?
sounds amazing.
I don't mind driving.
That'd be great.
Love it. I love driving. Yeah.
Okay,
then. So we'll arrange that.
We'll arrange that. Go up there and see exactly what a gaslit cinema is, because I still don't know.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, like kind of proper art. Well, there's the later one was the Art Deco one. It was the earlier one. But yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. All right.
I love Art Deco. It'd be cool.
All right. So before we wrap up with playing the game of what do we think Karen looks like based on her voice, before we do that, I just want to give a little bit of feedback because I have finished watching Homeland season 2.
Oh.
Just to say, I finished watching Homeland season 2, and it did recover, because what I said was that there was a point in Homeland season 2 that something happened, and both myself and my wife went, "Oh, for goodness sake!" And we just couldn't be bothered to watch. We couldn't be bothered to watch the next episode, and that was about 8 years ago. We just couldn't be bothered, and we just said, "Forget about this. We're not watching this anymore." And so I went back and forced myself to watch the next episode. It probably took me about 2 weeks to watch, 4 episodes to get to the end of the season. And it did recover. I think the season did recover, although there is this storyline that I am going to say, I'm going to refer to it as Homeland, a love story. And there's bits of it where you could walk in and you would think, hang on, I thought I was watching something about American Homeland Security and people trying to track down terrorists and stop bombs going off. And you would think you were watching a romantic comedy. And there's a bit called Homeland, a love story that I do not buy. I just didn't buy it. Those two characters, I was like, doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. You're not convincing me. Doesn't make any sense. And although I think that the note that the season ends on was a really, really good one. Some really, really good work from Claire Danes and Mandy Patinkin. But that's me with Homeland Season 2. Over the next couple of months, expect to get the review of Homeland Season 3 and the review of Homeland Season 4. And when I get to Homeland Season 6, if I'm still not enjoying myself that much, Homeland Season 7 and 8 might not get a look in. But anyway, so what do we think Karen looks like based on her voice?
Who's going to go first?
I don't know if I'm very good at this game.
You were pretty good last week. You were pretty spot on last week.
Okay, I'm going to say about 5'6", quite slim build, short black hair.
All right.
Like a bob sort of thing, maybe, or not a bob as such, but similar sort of style.
All right. And Sharon?
I don't know. I was thinking sort of sandy brown hair, curly hair, not too tall. Smiley. I was just thinking, smiley, curly, sort of light mid-brown hair. I don't know. I was thinking, grey, hazel eyes.
Are we close?
Hazel eyes. Ooh. Now let's see. I think in between both of your descriptions, you're getting close. In between, there's bits both of you kind of got right, but I will leave that for Karen. I'll leave it for Karen to tell us and show us and tell us exactly how insulted she is by what by the guesses of what we think she looks like based on her voice. Okay, and her hair color is one of those that I don't know, like how there's some hair colors that I still don't know what people are talking about when they say oh, strawberry blonde. I'm like, what the hell's that? I don't know what strawberry blonde is. And there's all these.
It's a nice way of saying ginger.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because they say strawberry blonde, and I think that's just blonde, isn't it? But anyway, so I think Karen has a hair color that I do not know what the actual color or the number of the actual name for is. But anyway, Karen, let us know. Send us a picture. Let us know what it is. Let us know how good or bad they got that. And until next week, until that time, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
We have nailed that.
Yes.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much. See you next week.
Okay.